कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूः मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि.
Namaste, Radhe Radhe everyone. How is it going? Are you enjoying? How was day one? With the blessings and presence of Hari and Guru, we will start day two with a trivia question. Yay! Nidhi get ready. Question for today is: who had the knowledge of Gita before Arjun? Karn, Drona, Bhishma, or Lord Sun?
राधे राधे कविता आते ही क्वेश्चन पहले लेट अस फर्स्ट मीट एवरीवन ग्रीट एवरीवन राधे राधे and a very very warm welcome to all of you. How are you all feeling? Share your thoughts. Excited? What is the status of your mind? Looking forward? Thank you for being here with us on day 2 of International Gita Festival 2022. Me and Kavita will be your host, entertaining you this day.
So, while you all are answering the trivia question, we will start the program by lamp lighting. Nidhi, do you like dancing?
Of course, yes, Kavita. I love dancing, and I'm sure everyone here does too. But why you ask? Do I have to perform here?
No, Nidhi, no. I won't give you that trouble. I asked because I believe that dancing is something that everyone can feel, understand, and definitely something everyone can enjoy. So, what we have for you today is a very, very special dance performance by Saatvikam Shivam School of Dance.
Yes, Kavita, you are so right. I love the expressions of the artists, the dancers. They express the words so beautifully. I just love it. And I just can't wait to enjoy the dance. But you know what, Kavita? Today is a very important day for everyone. It is a day of learning. So get ready, be receptive, find your pen and notebook. We will have reading and recitation from chapter 3 to 5 from Bhagavad Gita, and then a very special talk. Any guesses? What is the topic? I did share it yesterday. Do you remember, Kavita? What was the topic?
Nidhi, definitely everybody was absorbed in that divinity. I'm sure probably audience might remember.
See, I put you in the spot. Well, the topic was career lessons from Bhagavad Gita. And I'm sure all our viewers, they remember it. And of course, in between, Kavita Madam will test your knowledge, share some fun facts from Bhagavad Gita. By the way, did you all answer the previous question? Come on, everyone. We all want to see who answered correctly.
Nidhi, are you forgetting our Gita Anecdote and Gita Upadesh segments?
Not at all. We will have beautiful stories from the divine pastimes of Sri Krishna in the Gita Anecdote and the Gita Upadesh. So let's start the event with lamp lighting, followed by the dance performance, and we will come back again.
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः.
माखन खायो। भोर भयो गैयन के पाछे, मधुवन मोगी पटायो। भोर भयो गैयन के पाछे, मधुवन मोगी पटायो। चार पहर बंसी बट बट क्यों, सांझ परे घर आयो। मैया मोरे मैं नहीं माखन खायो। चार पहर बंसी बट बट क्यों, सांझ परे घर आयो। मैया मोरे मैं नहीं माखन खायो। मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो। मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो। मैं बालक बगियन को छोटो, चीका कही विधि पायो। मैं बालक बगियन को छोटो, चीका कही विधि पायो। ग्वाल बाल सब बैर पड़े हैं, परवस मुख लपटायो। मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो। ग्वाल बाल सब बैर पड़े हैं, परवस मुख लपटायो। मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो। 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 ये ले अपनी लखोटी कमरिया, मैं नहीं नाच नचायूं। ये ले अपनी लखोटी कमरिया, मैं नहीं नाच नचायूं। सूरदास जब बेहसी जशोदा, लौर कंठ लगायो। मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो। सूरदास जब बेहसी जशोदा, लौर कंठ लगायो। मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो। 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 मैया मोरी, मैया मोरी, मैया मोरी मैंने ही माखन खायो।
That was indeed a lovely performance. How captivating. Did we all put the answers for the trivia questions yet? So the question was, who had the knowledge of Gita before Arjun? Nidhi, did you put your answer or no?
Oh, I forgot, but I know my viewers are answering on behalf of me.
Okay, let's reveal the answer. The answer for today's trivia question is Lord Sun. Yes, this is in chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Krishna tells Arjun that the eternal science he taught to Lord Sun as well. Okay, so Nidhi, what are you really excited about this year?
Talking to our viewers, Gita enthusiasts attending with us here. Are you enjoying the program? Type yes if you are. Also, the new version of Bhagavad Gita commentary written by Swami Mukundananda ji has been released. Do you know that, Kavita? Share who all got the copy of the new book and the Har Ghar Gita campaign. Let's see who signed up for it. How many copies have you pledged to donate, buy, distribute? Share it with us in the comment section below.
I did, Nidhi. I bought my copy. I gifted it to friends, family. And if anyone is still thinking, this is the time, go buy your copy, make a difference in yours and someone else's life. Feel free to share it with your friends and visit jkope.org/Gita Festival to sign up. We will come back after chapter 3 and 4 recitation and reading.
Donate Bhagavad Gita and be a part of the Har Ghar Gita campaign.
Please join the Har Ghar Gita campaign.
Donate Bhagavad Gita
And be a part of Har Ghar Gita campaign.
तृतीयोऽध्यायः कर्मयोगः अर्जुन उवाच ज्यायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत्किं कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्। श्रीभगवानुवाच लोकेऽस्मिन् द्विविधा निष्ठा पुरा प्रोक्ता मया नघ ज्ञानयोगेन साङ्ख्यानां कर्मयोगेन योगिनां न कर्मणामनारम्भान् नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते न च सन्न्यस्सनादेव सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति न हि कश्चित् क्षणमपि जातु तिष्ठत्य कर्मकृत् कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म सर्वः प्रकृतिजैर्गुणैः कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयम्य य आस्ते मनसा स्मरन् इन्द्रियार्थान् विमूढात्मा मिथ्याचारः स उच्यते यस्त्विन्द्रियाणि मनसा नियम्यारभतेऽर्जुन कर्मेन्द्रियैः कर्मयोगम् असक्तः स विशिष्यते नियतं कुरु कर्म त्वम् कर्म ज्यायो ह्यकर्मणः शरीरयात्रापि च ते न प्रसिद्ध्येद कर्मणः यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणोऽन्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्म बन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तः सङ्गः समाचर सह यज्ञा प्रजा सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्यध्वम् येष वोस्विष्टकामधुक् देवान् भावयतानेन ते देवा भावयन्तु वः परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेयः परमवाप्स्यथ इष्टान् भोगान् हि वो देवाः दास्यन्ते यज्ञभाविताः तैर्दत्तान प्रदायैभ्यः यो भुङ्क्तेस्तेन एव सः यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तः मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापाः ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणात् अन्नाद् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्न सम्भवः यज्ञाद् भवति पर्जन्यः यज्ञः कर्म समुद्भवः कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवम् विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षर समुद्भवम् तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम् एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रम् नानुवर्तयति हयः अघायुरिन्द्रिया रामः मोघं पार्थ स जीवति यस्त्वात्मरतिरेव स्यात् आत्मतृप्तस्य मानवः आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टः तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते नैव तस्य कृतेनार्तः नाकृते नेह कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिदर्थव्यपाश्रयः तस्मादसक्तः सततं कार्यं कर्म समाचर असक्तो ह्याचरन् कर्म परमाप्नोति पूरुषः कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम् आस्तिता जनकादयः लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठः तत्तदेवेतरो जनः स यत्प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तदनुवर्तते न मे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यम् त्रिषु लोकेषु किञ्चन नानवाप्तमवाप्तव्यम् वर्त एव च कर्मणि यदि ह्ययं न वर्तेयम् जातु कर्मण्यतन्द्रितः मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः उत्सीदेयुरिमे लोकाः न कुर्यां कर्म चेदहम् संकरस्य च कर्ता स्याम् उपहन्यामिमाः प्रजाः सक्ता कर्मण्य विद्वांसः यथा कुर्वन्ति भारत कुर्याद् विद्वांस्तथा सक्तः चिकीर्षु लोकसङ्ग्रहम् न बुद्धिभेदं जनये अज्ञानां कर्म संगिनां जोषये सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन् प्रकृते क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहङ्कार विमूढात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्म विभागयोः गुणागुणेषु वर्तन्ते इति मत्वा न सज्जते प्रकृते गुणसम्मूढाः सज्जन्ते गुणकर्मसु तान् कृत्स्नविदो मन्दान् कृत्स्नविन्न विचालयेत् मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यस्याध्यात्मचेतसा निराशेर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगतज्वरः ये मे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तः मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः ये त्वे तदभ्यसूयन्तः नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान् चेतसः सदृशं चेष्टते स्वस्याः प्रकृते ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रहः किं करिष्यति इन्द्रियस्येन्द्रियस्यार्थे रागद्वेषौ व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्न वशमागच्छेत् तौ ह्यस्य परिपन्थिनौ श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः अर्जुन उवाच अथ केन प्रयुक्तोऽयम् पापं चरति पूरुषः अनिच्छन्नपि वार्ष्णेय बलादिव नियोजितः श्रीभगवानुवाच काम एष क्रोध एष रजो गुणसमुद्भवः महाशनो महापाप्मा विध्येनमिह वैरिणम् धूमेनाव्रियते वह्निः यथादर्शो मलेन च यथोल्बेनावृतो गर्भः तथा तेनेदमावृतम् आवृतं ज्ञानमेतेन ज्ञानिनो नित्यवैरिणा कामरूपेण कौन्तेय दुष्पुरारेण लेन च इन्द्रियाणि मनोबुद्धिः अस्याधिष्ठानमुच्यते एतैर्विमोहयत्येष ज्ञानमावृत्य देहिनम् तस्मात् त्वमिन्द्रियाण्यादौ नियम्य भरतर्षभः पाप्मानं प्रजहिह्येनम् ज्ञानविज्ञाननाशनम् इन्द्रियाणि पराण्याहुः इन्द्रियेभ्यः परं मनः मनसस्तु परा बुद्धिः यो बुद्धे परतस्तु सः एवं बुद्धे परं बुद्ध्वा संस्तभ्यात्मानमात्मना जहि शत्रुं महाबाहो कामरूपं दुरासदम् ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुन संवादे कर्मयोगो नाम तृतीयोऽध्यायः। सर्वं श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु।
Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, Chapter 3. Arjun said, O Janardana, if you consider knowledge superior to action, then why do you ask me to wage this terrible war? My intellect is bewildered by your ambiguous advice. Please tell me decisively the one path by which I may attain the highest good. Then Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Translation: The Lord said, O sinless one, the two paths leading to enlightenment were previously explained by me: the path of knowledge for those inclined towards contemplation, and the path of work for those inclined towards actions. One cannot achieve freedom from karmic reactions by merely abstaining from work, nor can one attain perfection of knowledge by mere physical renunciation. Sloka number 5, translation: There is no one who can remain without action, even for a moment. Indeed, all beings are compelled to act by their qualities born of material nature, that are 3 gunas.
Those who restrain the external organs of action while continuing to dwell on these sense objects in the mind certainly delude themselves and are to be called hypocrites. But those karma yogis who control their knowledge senses with the mind, O Arjun, and engage the working senses in working without attachment are certainly superior. You should thus perform your prescribed Vedic duties, since action is superior to inaction. By ceasing activity, even your bodily maintenance will not be possible. Work must be done as a yajna to the Supreme Lord, otherwise work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, for the satisfaction of God, perform your prescribed duties without being attached to the results. In the beginning of creation, Brahma created humankind along with duties and said, Prosper in the performance of these yajnas, for they shall bestow upon you all you wish to achieve.
Verse 11. By your sacrifices, the celestial gods will be pleased, and by cooperation between humans and the celestial gods, great prosperity will reign for all. Verse 12. The celestial gods, being satisfied by the performance of sacrifice, will grant you all the desired necessities of life. But those who enjoy what is given to them without making any offerings in return are verily thieves. Verse 13. The spiritually minded who eat food that is first offered in sacrifice are released from all kinds of sin. Others who cook food for their own enjoyment verily eat only sin. Verse number 14. All living beings subsist on food, and food is produced by rains. Rains come from the performance of sacrifice, and sacrifice is produced by the performance of prescribed duties. Verse 15. The duties for human beings are described in the Vedas, and the Vedas are manifested by the God Himself. Therefore, the all-pervading Lord is eternally present in acts of sacrifice.
O Parth, those who do not accept their responsibility in the cycle of sacrifice established by the Vedas are sinful. They live only for the delight of their senses. Indeed, their lives are in vain. But those who rejoice in the self, who are illumined and fully satisfied in the self, For them, there is no duty. Such self-realized souls have nothing to gain or lose, either in discharging or renouncing their duties. Nor do they need to depend on other living beings to fulfill their self-interest. Therefore, giving up attachment, perform actions as a matter of duty, because by working without being attached to the fruits, one attains the Supreme. By performing their prescribed duties, King Janak and others attain perfection. You should also perform your duties to set an example for the good of the world. Whatever actions great persons perform, common people follow. Whatever standards they set, all the world pursues.
There is no duty for me to do in all the three worlds, O Parth, nor do I have anything to gain or attain. Yet, I am engaged in prescribed duties. For if I did not carefully perform the prescribed duties, O Parth, all men would follow my path in all respects. If I ceased to perform prescribed actions, all these worlds would perish. I would be responsible for the pandemonium that would prevail and would thereby destroy the peace of human race. As ignorant people perform their duties with attachment to the results, O sign of Bharat, so should the wise act without attachment for the sake of leading people on the right path.
Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 3, Shlok number 26. The wise should not create disorder in the intellects of ignorant people who are attached to fruitive actions by inducing them to stop work. Rather, by performing their duties in an enlightened manner, they should inspire the ignorant also to do their prescribed duty. Shlok 27. All activities are carried out by the three modes of material nature, but in ignorance, the soul, deluded by false identification with the body, think of itself as the doer. Shlok 28. O mighty armed Arjun, illumined persons distinguish the soul as distinct from gunas and karmas. They perceive that it is only the gunas that move among the gunas, and thus they do not get entangled in them. Shlok 29. Those who are deluded by the operation of the gunas become attached to the result of their actions. But the wise who understand these truths should not unsettle such ignorant people who know very little. Shloka 30. Performing all works as an offering unto me, constantly meditate on me as the Supreme. Become free from desires as selfishness, and with your mental grief departed fight.
Those who abide by these teachings of mine with profound faith and free from envy are released from the bondage of karma. But those who find faults with my teachings, being bereft of knowledge and devoid of discrimination, they disregard these principles and bring about their own ruin. Even wise people act according to their natures, for all living beings are propelled by their natural tendencies. What will one gain by repression? The senses naturally experience attachment and aversion to the sense objects. but do not be controlled by them, for they are waylayers and foes. It is far better to perform one's natural prescribed duty, though tinged with faults, than to perform another's prescribed duty, though perfectly. In fact, it is preferable to die in the discharge of one's duty than to follow the path of another, which is fraught with danger.
Arjun asked, why is a person impelled to commit sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if by force, O descendant of Krishna? The Supreme Lord said, it is lust alone, which is born of contact with the mode of passion and later transformed into anger. Know this as the sinful, all-devouring enemy in the world. Just as a fire is covered by smoke, a mirror is masked by dust, and an embryo is concealed by the womb, similarly, one's knowledge gets shrouded by desire. The knowledge of even the most discerning gets covered by this perpetual enemy in the form of insatiable desire, which is never satisfied and burns like fire, O son of Kunti. The senses, mind, and intellect are said to be breeding grounds of desire. Through them, it clouds one's knowledge and dilutes the embodied soul.
Therefore, O best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, bring the senses under control and slay this enemy called desire, which is the embodiment of sin and destroys knowledge and realization. The senses are superior to the gross body, and superior to the senses is the mind. Beyond the mind is the intellect, and even beyond the intellect is the soul. Thus, knowing the soul to be superior to the material intellect, O mighty armed Arjun, subdue the lower self, senses, mind, and intellect, by the higher self, strength of the soul, and kill this formidable enemy called lust.
Radhe Radhe. One of my most favorite verses from the Bhagavad Gita is from chapter 2, verse 3, and it says, Klaipyam masmagama partha naitatvayupapatyate shudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvottishta parantapa. In this, Sri Krishna is saying to Arjun, give up this weakness of heart and arise, O vanquisher of enemies. I love that phrase, the translation by Swami Mukundananda ji. It is so beautiful. Essentially, Krishna is reminding Arjun of who he is and essentially reminding us of who we are. We are the children of God. So, the Almighty, all-powerful. So whenever I feel dejected or, like giving up, or I feel the life is too hard or sadhana is too hard, I always bring this verse to my mind and I feel like Krishna is saying to me, arise, O vanquisher of enemies. You will be able to overcome your vices or whatever, problems that are coming in life because God gives us the energy to do so. So this verse has really, really been transformational in my life. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
ज्ञानकर्म संन्यासयोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच इमं विवस्वते योगं प्रोक्तवानहमव्ययम् विवस्वान्मनवे प्राह मनोवीक्षा कवे ब्रवीत् एवं परम्परा प्राप्तम् इमं राजर्षयो विदुः सकाले नेह महता योगो नष्ट परन्तप स एवायं मया तेभ्य योग प्रोक्ता पुरातनः भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं ह्येतदुत्तमम्।
अर्जुन उवाच अपरं भवतो जन्म परं जन्म विवस्वतः कथमेतद्विजानीयाम् त्वाम् आदौ प्रोक्तवान् इति। श्रीभगवानुवाच बहूनि मे व्यतीतानि जन्मानि तव चार्जुन तान्यहं वेद सर्वाणि न तं वेत्थ परन्तप अजोऽपि सन्नव्ययात्मा भूतानामीश्वरोऽपि सन् प्रकृतिं स्वाम् अधिष्ठाय सम्भवाम्यात्मा मायया।
यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानमधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम् परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृताम् धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय सम्भवामि युगे युगे जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति मामेति सोऽर्जुन।
वीतरागा भयाक्रोधाः मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूतमद्भावमागताः ये यथा मां प्रपद्यन्ते तांस्तथैव भजाम्यहम् मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मानुष्यः पार्थ सर्वशः काङ्क्षन्त कर्मणां सिद्धिम् यजन्त इह देवताः क्षिप्रं हि मनुष्ये लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा।
चातुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टम् गुणकर्म विभागशः तस्य कर्तारमपि मां विद्यकर्तारमव्ययम् न मां कर्माणि लिम्पन्ति न मे कर्मफले स्पृहा इति मां योऽभिजानाति कर्मभिर्न स बध्यते एवं ज्ञात्वा कृतं कर्म पूर्वैरपि मुमुक्षुभिः कुरु कर्मैव तस्मात् त्वं पूर्वैर्पूर्वतरं कृतम्।
किं कर्म किमकर्मेति कवयोऽप्यत्र मोहिताः तत्ते कर्म प्रवक्ष्यामि ज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात् कर्मणो ह्यपि बोधव्यं च विकर्मणः अकर्मणश्च बोधव्यम् गहना कर्मणो गतिः कर्मण्यकर्मया पश्येत् अकर्मणि च कर्मणः स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु स युक्तः कृत्स्नकर्मकृत्
यस्य सर्वे सरारम्भाः कामसङ्कल्पवर्जिताः ज्ञानदग्धाः कर्माणं तामहु पण्डितं बुधाः यत्त्वकर्म फलासङ्गा नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रयः कर्मण्यभिप्रवृत्तोऽपि नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः
निराशीर्यत चित्तात्मा त्यक्त सर्वपरिग्रहः शारीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम् यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टो द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समसिद्धावसिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न निबध्यते
कथासङ्गस्य मुक्तस्य यनावस्थितचेतसः यनायाचरकर्म समग्रं प्रविलीयते
ब्रह्मार्पणं ब्रह्महविर् ब्रह्माग्नौ ब्रह्मणाहुतं ब्रह्मैव तेन गन्तव्यं ब्रह्मकर्मसमाधिना
दैवमेवापरे यज्ञं योगिना पर्युपासते ब्रह्मज्ञावपरे यज्ञं यज्ञेनैवोपजुह्वति श्रोत्रादीनिन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयाण्यन्या इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति
सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नौ जुह्वति ज्ञानदीपिते द्रव्ययज्ञस्तपो यज्ञा योगयज्ञस्तथा परे स्वाध्यायान्यानयज्ञाश्च यतया संशिता व्रताः
अपाने जुह्वति प्राणं प्राणे पानं तथा परे प्राणापानगतिरुत्वा प्राणायामपरायणाः अपरे नियताहाराः प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेऽप्येते यज्ञविदो यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनं नायं लोकोऽस्त्ययज्ञस्य कुतोऽन्यः कुरु सत्तमा
एवं बहुविधा यज्ञा वितता ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विदितान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे
श्रेयान् द्रव्यमयद्यज्ञात् ज्ञानयज्ञपरन्तपा सर्वं कर्मखिलं पार्थ ज्ञाने परिसमाप्यते तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्षन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः
यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डव येन भूतान्यशेषेण द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यतो मयि
अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजिनं सन्तरिष्यसि
यतैदांसि समिद्धोऽग्निः भस्मसात् कुरुते अर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तथा
न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते तत्स्वयं योगसंसिद्धः कालेनात्मनि विन्दति श्रद्धावान् लभते ज्ञानं तत्परः संयतेन्द्रियः ज्ञानं लब्ध्वा परं शक्तिम् अचिरेणाधिगच्छति
अज्ञश्च श्रद्धधानश्च संशयात्मा विनश्यति नायं लोकोऽस्ति न परो न सुखं संशयात्मनः योगसंन्यस्तकर्माणं ज्ञानसञ्छिन्न संशयम् आत्मवन्तं न कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
तस्मादज्ञानसम्भूतं हृस्तं ज्ञानसिनात्मनः चित्वैनं संशयं योगम् आतिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत ॐ तत्सदिति इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे ज्ञानकर्मसान्न्यसयोगो नाम अथ चतुर्थोऽध्यायः श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु
Chapter 4 Jnana Karma Sannyas Yoga, the yoga of knowledge and the disciplines of action. The Supreme Lord Shree Krishna said, I taught this eternal science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, who passed it on to Manu, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. O subduer of enemies, the saintly kings thus received the science of yoga in a continuous tradition. But with the long passage of time, it was lost to the world. The same ancient knowledge of yoga, which is the supreme secret, I am today revealing unto you, because you are my friend as well as my devotee, who can understand this transcendental wisdom. Arjun said, You were born much after Vivasvan. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed the science to him? The Supreme Lord said, Both you and I have had many births, O Arjun. You have forgotten them, while I remember them all, O Parantapa.
Although I am unborn, the Lord of all living entities, and have an imperishable nature, yet I appear in this world by virtue of Yogmaya, my divine power. Whenever there is a decline in righteousness and an increase in unrighteousness, O Arjun, at that time I manifest myself on earth to protect the righteous, to annihilate the wicked, and to re-establish the principles of Dharma. I appear on this earth age after age. Those who understand the divine nature of my birth and activities, O Arjun, upon leaving the body, do not have to take birth again, but come to my eternal abode. Being free from attachment, fear, and anger, becoming fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me. Many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus attained my divine love.
In whatever way people surrender unto me, I reciprocate accordingly. Everyone follows my path, knowingly or unknowingly, O son of Pritha. In this world, those desiring success in material activities worship the celestial gods, since material rewards manifest quickly. The four categories of occupation were created by me according to people's qualities and activities. Although I am the creator of this system, know me to be the non-doer and eternal. Activities do not taint me, nor do I desire the fruits of action. One who knows me in this way is never bound by the karmic reactions of work. Knowing this truth, even seekers of liberation in ancient times performed actions. Therefore, following the footsteps of those ancient sages, you too should perform your duty.
What is action and what is inaction? Even the wise are confused in determining this. Now, I shall explain to you the secret of action, by knowing which you may free yourself from material bondage. You must understand the nature of all three recommended: action, wrong action, and inaction. The truth about these is profound and difficult to understand. Those who see action in inaction and inaction in action are truly wise amongst humans. Although performing all kinds of actions, they are yogis and masters of all their actions. The enlightened sages call those persons wise, whose every action is free from the desire for material pleasures and who have burned the reactions of work in the fire of divine knowledge. Such people, having given up attachment to the fruits of their actions, are always satisfied and not dependent on external things. Despite engaging in activities, they do not do anything at all.
Free from expectations and the sense of ownership, with the mind and intellect fully controlled, they incur no sin even though performing actions by their body. Content with whatever gain comes of its own accord and free from envy, they are beyond the dualities of life. Being equipoised in success and failure, they are not bound by their actions even while performing all kinds of activities. They are released from the bondage of material attachments and their intellect is established in divine knowledge. Since they perform all actions as a sacrifice to God, they are freed from all karmic reactions. For those who are completely absorbed in God consciousness, the oblation is Brahman, the ladle with which it is offered is Brahman, the act of offering is Brahman, and the sacrificial fire is also Brahman. Such persons who view everything as God easily attain Him. Some yogis worship the celestial gods with material offerings onto them. Others worship perfectly, who offer the self as the sacrifice in the fire of the supreme truth.
Others offer hearing and other senses in the sacrificial fire of restraint. Still others offer sound and other objects of the senses as sacrificed in the fire of the senses. Some, inspired by knowledge, offer the functions of all their senses and their life energy in the fire of the controlled mind. Some offer their wealth as sacrifice while others offer severe austerities as sacrifice. Some practice the eightfold path of yogic practices, and yet others study the scriptures and cultivate knowledge as sacrifice while observing strict vows. Still others offer as sacrifice the outgoing breath in the incoming breath, while some offer the incoming breath into the outgoing breath, purely observed in the regulation of life energy. Yet others curtail their food intake and offer the breath into the life energy as sacrifice. All these knowers of sacrifice are cleansed of their impurities as a result of such performances.
Those who know the secret of sacrifice and engaging in it partake of its remnants that are like nectar, advance toward the absolute truth. O best of the Gurus, those who perform no sacrifice find no happiness either in this world or the next. All these different kinds of sacrifice have been described in the Vedas. Know them as originating from different types of work. This understanding cuts the knots of material bondage. O subduer of enemies, sacrifice performed in the knowledge is superior to any mechanical material sacrifice. After all, O Parth, all the sacrifices of work culminate in knowledge. Learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him with reverence and render service unto him. Such an enlightened saint can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Following this path and having achieved enlightenment from a guru, O Arjun, you will no longer fall into delusion. In the light of that knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but parts of the Supreme and are within me.
Even those who are considered the most immortal of all sinners can cross over this ocean of material existence by seating themselves in the boat of divine knowledge. As a kindled fire reduces the wood to ashes, O Arjun, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions from material activities. In this world, there is nothing as purifying as divine knowledge. One who has attained purity of mind through prolonged practice of yoga receives such knowledge within the heart in due course of time. Those whose faith is deep and who has practiced controlling their mind and senses attain divine knowledge. Through such transcendental knowledge, they quickly attain everlasting supreme peace. But persons who possesses neither faith nor knowledge and who are of doubting nature suffer a downfall. For the spectacle souls there is no happiness either in this world or the next. O Arjun, action don't bind those who have renounced karma in the fire of yoga, whose doubts has been dispelled by knowledge, and who are situated in the knowledge of the self. Therefore, with the sword of knowledge, cut asunder the doubts that have arisen in your heart. O Sikon of Bharat, establish yourself in Karma Yoga. Arise, stand up, and take action.
Bhagavad Gita has given me a different perspective what this book is about. For me, it's like a magic book. When I open it, if I have any going through any situation, worldly or spiritual problem, I open it, I have an answer. I never thought that I will be, using Bhagavad Gita that much in my day-to-day life. Chapter 3, verse 7 comes to my mind, which is about the Karma Yoga. Karma means doing your duty, worldly duties, and the yoga means that union to God, and then keep your mind in the God. So that's my really takeaway from this Bhagavad Gita. I do my jobs, whatever, like daily duties, cooking, cleaning, working, whatever, and I keep my mind engaged in God. So while doing my worldly duties, I think of God, that I am doing this for God. I am doing because it makes Him happy.
Radhe Radhe and welcome back everyone. Kavita, I was talking to one of my friends and she shared with me her experience, which I would like to share with broader audience. She took 30-day challenge on Bhagavad Gita reading. The intention was not to read the entire book in 30 days, but reading at your own pace and at the same time ensuring that you read every day. It's just like a habit of reading. So she narrated her experience to me, saying, by the time my 1 month challenge was over, I was calmer and more mindful than before. I felt so light afterward that I continued the challenge for another month.
Wow.
What astonished me about Gita was its practicality, a book written hundreds and thousands of years ago to answer today's questions. That I think is an experience for each and everyone, right, Kavita?
Yes, Nidhi, and wow, I mean, just starting it slow, steady, 30 days, and then signing it up for next one. Wow. Lucky
Yes.
soul, I think. Some of us really, really struggle to get into that habit of reading it every day. But I think your friend did an amazing job. It's time for our next trivia question. The next question is, who instructed the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Ikshvaku? Who instructed the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Ikshvaku? Sun God, Vivaswan, Manu, or Krishna? So while the audience is answering that, Nidhi, I have one more question for you. What is the best way to find God? You help me find the answer for this one, Nidhi.
Oh no, Kavita, you always have the habit of putting me in spot. अरे ये तो स्वामी जी बताएंगे. But all I know is प्रभु खोजने से नहीं मिलते, उसमें खोज जाने से मिलते हैं. जैसे me lost case अपने कृष्णा में. Well, now it's time for Gita Anecdotes, a new edition this year by Umaji, followed by some competition glimpses.
Radhe Radhe, Namaste, and welcome to the story segment of the International Bhagavad Gita Festival 2022. Today's story is absolutely heartwarming. Why? Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Surrender unto a guru and in complete humility serve him with all your heart and soul. And so today's story is about such a disciple whose surrender was 100% complete. This is the story of a little boy called Aruni. Now, Aruni went to the ashram of Rishi Ayodhomya. He started staying over there, he started studying over there, and he engaged himself in different kinds of sevas. He made sure that he was never idle. He always found something or the other to engage himself in. Rishi Ayodhomya was observing all of it. He also saw that how Aruni respected each and every one in the ashram. He respected the elders and loved the little ones. He never got angry, and he spoke softly to each and every one over there. Ayodhya knew that Aruni's heart was absolutely pure. He thought of testing Aruni. So one day, apparently, it started raining, and at that very time, the banks had overflown so much that the water had started overflowing into the fields. Ayodhya instructed all his students that, "Oh, my dear disciples, this water needs to be stopped right away. If not, we will not have anything to eat in the coming year." Every disciple went forward and tried to stop the force of the water. They tried tying it up with a cloth. They tried putting up stones there. They tried various tricks and traits, but none of them succeeded. At last, when everyone came back, Rishi Ayodhya sent his dear disciple Aruni to go ahead and try his best. Aruni went over to the bank and tried all the things that his fellow disciples had tried as well. Now, it did not work, of course, but for Aruni, this was the instruction of his guru. He had to fulfill it no matter what. And so Aruni went over the wall and he lay down on the wall. Now, when he lay over the wall, no water could surpass him. The water stayed there, stopping its flow into the fields. It was evening time when Aruni had been out. From night it had become morning, yet Aruni did not return. In the morning, the rishi was really worried about him. He inquired, "Where is Aruni?" All the disciples replied, "Oh Guruji, we do not know. He has been out since last evening and he hasn't returned yet." Listening to that, Rishi Ayodhya hurried towards the fields, calling out, "Aruni, Aruni, where are you, my dear child?" Aruni called out, "Guruji, I am here. You had asked me to stop the water and I am lying down here. But if I were to get up, all the water would flood the fields." Guruji ran to Aruni and lifted him up from there and immediately embraced him. As soon as Rishi Ayodhya embraced Aruni, the secret of all the Vedas was revealed in the heart of Aruni. And thus, Aruni set a great example of Guru Bhakti. And this is how we are supposed to inculcate the sentiment of surrender towards our Guru. The main difference between material knowledge and spiritual knowledge is that unlike material knowledge, spiritual knowledge cannot be gained by paying for it, but instead divine knowledge can only be received by surrendering to a guru wholeheartedly and serving him with humility. And that is when the Vedas, or the knowledge of all the scriptures, gets revealed in our hearts. So let us all also learn from Aruni and try to surrender ourselves at the lotus feet of our Guru. I hope you enjoyed this story. I'll meet you all tomorrow with yet another story. Until then, educate, elevate, empower, And do not forget to read more stories from the Bhagavad Gita commentary written by none other than the spiritual leader and the master of mind management, Swami Mukundananda ji. I'll see you all very soon. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Namaskaram. Chapter 7 is Jnana Vijnana Yoga. In this chapter, Krishna Paramatma talks about material and spiritual energies.
Grace means that without having someone do anything, you give them something. That is God's grace too. But there's one condition. All he has to do is surrender to him.
The meaning of jnana is to see something and to understand, to know about it. Whereas the meaning of vijnana is to experience it.
Sometimes we fight with enemies without even knowing it. These enemies are anger, greed, lust, illusion, and envy.
When turned towards the right side, in the right direction, we open ourselves. We are free from the bondage of this samsara.
The word karma not only incorporates the actions that we perform from our external organs, but also the thoughts and ideas that occur in our mind.
कर्म करते रहने से शरीर में आलस्य नहीं है। यदि हम अपना कर्म करेंगे जो वेद विहित हैं, तो हम आलसी नहीं बनेंगे।
Arjun asked, why is a person impelled to commit sinful acts? The urge for money, physical cravings.
4 types of people who do not surrender to him.
They're selfless desire people and will approach Krishna because they know it's the right thing to do.
1,000 years, being pleased with their devotion, Lord.
ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ पञ्चमोऽध्यायः कर्मसन्न्यासयोगः। अर्जुन उवाच सन्न्यासं कर्मणां कृष्ण पुनर्योगं च संशसि यच्छ्रेय एतयोरेकं तन्मे ब्रूहि सुनिश्चितम्। श्रीभगवानुवाच सन्न्यासः कर्मयोगश्च निःश्रेयसकरावुभौ तयोस्तु कर्मसन्न्यासात् कर्मयोगो विशिष्यते। ज्ञेयस्य नित्यसन्न्यासी यो न द्वेष्टि न काङ्क्षति निर्द्वन्द्वो हि महाबाहो सुखं बन्धात् प्रमुच्यते। सांख्ययोगो पृथक् बालाः प्रवदन्ति न पण्डिताः एकमप्यास्थितः सम्यग् उभयोर्विन्दते फलम्। यत् सांख्यै प्राप्यते स्थानं तद्योगैरपि गम्यते। एकं सांख्यं च योगं च यः पश्यति स पश्यति। सन्न्यासस्तु महाबाहो दुःखम् आप्तुमयोगतः। योगयुक्तो मुनिर्ब्रह्म न चिरेणाधिगच्छति योगयुक्तो विशुद्धात्मा विजितात्मा जितेन्द्रियः सर्वभूतात्मभूतात्मा कुर्वन्नपि न लिप्यते नैव किञ्चित् करोमीति युक्तो मन्येत तद्ववित् पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् अश्नन् गच्छन् स्वपन् श्वसन् प्रलपन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषन् निमिषन्नपि इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन्
ब्रह्मण्यादाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्रमिवाम्बस कायेन मनसा बुद्ध्या केवलैरिन्द्रियैरपि योगिनः कर्म कुर्वन्ति सङ्गं त्यक्त्वात्मशुद्धये युक्तः कर्मफलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिमाप्नोति नैष्ठिकीम् अयुक्तः कामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते सर्वकर्माणि मनसा सन्न्यस्यास्ते सुखं वशी नवद्वारे पुरे देहि नैव कुर्वन्न कारयन् न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापं न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः
ज्ञानेन तु तदज्ञानं येषां नाशितम् आत्मनः तेषाम् आदित्यवज्ञानं प्रकाशयति तत्परम् तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मानः तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तं ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषः विद्याविनयसम्पन्ने ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि शुनि चैव श्वपाके च पण्डिता समदर्शिनः इहैव तैर्जितः सर्गो येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिताः न प्रहृष्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य च प्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः बाह्यस्पर्शेष्वसक्तात्मा विन्दत्यात्मनि यत् सुखं स ब्रह्म योगयुक्तात्मा सुखम् अक्षयम् अश्नुते यहि संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्त कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुं प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नरः योऽन्तसुखोऽन्तराळामः तथान्तर्ज्योतिरेव यः स योगी ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ब्रह्मभूतोऽधिगच्छति
लभन्ते ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ऋषयक्षीणकल्मषाः छिन्नद्वैधायतात्मानः सर्वभूताहिते रताः कामक्रोधावियुक्तानां यतीनां यतचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनाम् स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यान् चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधो यः सदा मुक्त एव सः भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छति ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे कर्मसन्न्यासयोगो नाम पञ्चमोऽध्यायः।
Radhe Radhe. Bhagavad Gita chapter 5. Arjun said, O Shri Krishna, you praised karma sannyas, the path of renunciation of actions, and you advised to do karma yoga, work with devotion. Please tell me decisively which of the two is more beneficial. The Supreme Lord said, both the path of karma sannyas, renunciation of actions, and karma yoga, working in devotion, lead to the supreme goal. But karma yoga is superior to karma sannyas. The karma yogis who neither desire nor hate anything should be considered always renounced. Free from all dualities, they are easily liberated from the bonds of material energy. Only the ignorant speak of Sankhya, renunciation of actions, or karma sannyas, and karma yoga, work in devotion, as different. Those who are truly learned say that by applying ourselves to any one of these paths, we can achieve the results of both. The supreme state that is attained by means of karma sannyas is also attained by working in devotion. Hence, those who see karma sannyas and karma yoga to be identical truly see things as they are.
Perfect renunciation, karma sannyas, is difficult to attain without performing work in devotion, karma yoga, O mighty Arjun, but the sage who is adept in karma yoga quickly attains the supreme. The karma yogis who are of purified intellect and who control the mind and senses see the soul of all souls in every living being. Though performing all kinds of actions, they are never entangled. Those steadfast in karma yoga always think, I am not the doer, even while engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, moving, sleeping, breathing, speaking, excreting, grasping, and opening or closing the eyes. With the light of divine knowledge, they see that it is only the material senses that are moving amongst their objects. Those who dedicate their actions to God, abandoning all attachment, remain untouched by sin, just as a lotus leaf is untouched by water. The yogis, while giving up attachment, perform actions with their body, senses, mind, and intellect only for the purpose of self-purification.
Offering the results of all activities to God, the karma yogis attain everlasting peace. Whereas those who, being impelled by their desires, work with a selfish motive, become entangled because they are attached to the fruits of their actions. The embodied beings who are self-controlled and detached reside happily in the city of 9 gates, free from thoughts that they are the doers or cause of anything. Neither the sense of doership nor the nature of actions comes from God, nor does he create the fruits of actions. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature, gunas. The omnipresent God does not involve himself in the sinful or virtuous deeds of anyone. The living entities are deluded because their inner knowledge is covered by ignorance. But for those whose ignorance is destroyed by divine knowledge, the supreme entity is revealed, just as the sun illumines everything when it rises. Those whose intellect is fixed in God, who are completely absorbed in God, with firm faith in Him as the supreme goal, such persons quickly reach the state from which there is no return, their sins having been dispelled by the light of knowledge. The truly learned, with the eyes of divine knowledge, see with equal vision a Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater.
Those whose minds are established in equality of vision conquer the cycle of birth and death in this very life. They possess the flawless qualities of God and are therefore seated in the absolute truth. Established in God, having a firm understanding of divine knowledge and not hampered by delusion, they neither rejoice in getting something pleasant nor grieve on experiencing the unpleasant. Those who are not attached to external sense pleasures realize divine bliss in the self. Being united with God through yoga, they experience unending happiness. The pleasures that arise from contact with the sense objects, though appearing as enjoyable to worldly minded people, are verily a source of misery. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, so the wise do not delight in them. Those persons are yogis who, before giving up the body, are able to check the forces of desire and anger, and they alone are happy. Those who are happy within themselves, enjoying the delight of God within and are illuminated by the inner light, such yogis are united with the Lord and are liberated from material existence. Those holy persons whose sins have been purged, whose doubts are annihilated, whose minds are disciplined, and who are devoted to the welfare of all beings, attain God and are liberated from the material existence. For those sannyasis who have broken out of anger and lust through constant effort, who have subdued their mind and are self-realized, liberation from material existence is both here and hereafter. Shutting out all thoughts of external enjoyment, with the gaze fixed on the space between the eyebrows, equalizing the flow of the incoming and the outgoing breath in the nostrils, and thus controlling the senses, mind and intellect, the sage who becomes free from desire and fear always lives in freedom. Having realized me as the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all the worlds and the selfless friend of all living beings, my devotee attains peace.
We are back again. So let's first reveal the answer for the trivia question. The trivia question was, who instructed the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Ikshvaku? Sun God, Vivaswan, Manu, or Krishna? The answer to the trivia question is Manu. It was Manu who instructed the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Ikshvaku. So Nidhi, sometimes, in our as a working professional, I'm sharing this with you that sometimes the working hours get so crazy, or sometimes there's a situation where you cannot avoid a conflict at work. I really want to understand what Gita has in for all of us working professionals. I think some of us really struggle in understanding and applying the knowledge practically, as we don't know how, when, and where it is relevant.
You are right, Kavita. इसीलिए तो इंटरनेशनल गीता फेस्टिवल है.
Agreed.
Providing answers for every aspect of life. You know? So, you are lucky actually. Today's talk will be on interaction on career lessons from Bhagavad Gita by Dr. Aditya Sharma ji. And followed by Gita Upadesh by Shree Krishna himself. So let's receive it as you would if he really was in front of you. Hope you all can benefit from it. It's time for me and Kavita to say goodbye. Tomorrow will be a new day with new sessions. But before that, here is a sneak peek. We will be covering chapters 6, 7, 8, 9, recitation and reading. And the highlight of the day will be, so remember this topic, interaction on anger management lessons from Bhagavad Gita.
आपका ट्रिविया क्वेश्चन
Unit.
निधि जी, आपका कल ये ट्रिविया क्वेश्चन तो नहीं है ना कि लेटेस्ट?
No, this is something that we all need, right, Kavita? Anger management lessons. So it's a great choice of a topic, and we're looking forward to even listen very, very carefully.
Yes, and everyone, please don't forget to share this event in social media, WhatsApp, with your friends, with your family. Do like and subscribe our YouTube channel if you haven't done so, and we will all meet you again tomorrow. Namaste, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. You are right, Kavita. Sharing is caring with loved ones. So do share it with each and everyone in your friend circle. So see you tomorrow, same time. Bye. Radhe Radhe.
Wait. Radhe Radhe, everyone. So today we are going to have a discussion in the International Gita Festival on the topic of career karma. So I'll be presenting on that topic with a few other participants. And whatever teachings I share today are based on the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, based on the commentary written by Swami Mukundananda ji, and inspired by whatever I have learned by watching his videos and interacting with him. So welcome everyone, and we will start the session. So I would request to share the slides now, and if we can open with the first slide. So this topic is career karma. So it is applying the principles of karma yoga to the topic of occupation or career. And that's what this slideshow is going to be about. And we will have questions from time to time from the participants that will be addressed during the presentation. These questions were discussed and submitted earlier. So those are the questions that we're going to take, and they'll be intermeshed within the presentation today. So let's begin. So what is career karma? So we know we spend most of our time in our work, because a lot of our daily lives, we are actually working in some kind of occupation. Can we press the next key? So it's basically a significant part of our lives. And if we are working full time, we are probably spending 8 to 10 hours a day at our job for 5 days a week. And if we are a homemaker or person working at home, that is still probably 10 to 14 hours a day. So a working professional, typically, like I said, they work about 12 to 8 hours a week or 12 hours a week. So it amounts to about 2,000 hours a year, and which basically comes to around 100,000 hours for your life, 50 years of your life. this should be about 8 hours a day, and this is about 14 hours, 12 to 14 hours a day for a home person who's at home. And if you actually calculate in years, for about 50 years, if somebody does work at home, it translates into almost 29 years of non-stop working. That's how much work takes our takes part in our lives. So it's very important to understand that we spend so much time at work, and that we need to use that time wisely. And it being the most valuable resource we have, the idea of career karma is how do you implement the principles and teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, especially the idea of karma yoga, into our occupational duties. So that is what this presentation is going to be about. So let us see what the Gita will tell us. Actions that we carry out in discharge of our occupational duty obviously has both positive and negative effects. So here, one thing we need to understand before we move forward is that karma has multiple meanings. One meaning, obviously, we all understand is action. Karma is any action we do. Then karma also means the consequences of your action. Okay, it can also be meant that way, that this is your karma, which means the consequences of your action come back to you. The principle of cause and effect is ingrained in this creation, and the principle is whatever you give to the universe, it comes back to you in some form. That is the idea of karma as a cause and effect theory. And so that is the occupational work combined with that theory of karma is what we are going to talk about today. So let's go to the next slide. So what does Krishna ji say to us about our career and about the nature of work? One of the things the Bhagavad Gita says is it is far better to perform one's naturally prescribed duty, okay, though tinged with faults, than to perform another person's prescribed duty, though perfectly. In fact, it is preferable, he says in the Gita, this is from chapter 3, verse 35, to die in discharge of one's duty than to follow somebody else's path. Okay. So, what does he mean here? Each of us is basically having inherent tendencies, which are called sanskars, which we inherit from our previous lifetimes. And each of us has a dominance or predominance of three gunas in us. And the gunas are the mode of purity, sattva guna, the mode of passion, which is rajoguna, and tamo guna, which is the mode of ignorance. Now, each one of us has those gunas. However, certain times, certain gunas become more dominant in us. So we have to understand that those gunas kind of determine our inner nature. The predominance of whichever guna becomes dominant, that is typically a person's nature at that particular time in life, right? It can change. Generally, we are born with some tendencies to begin with, and those gunas are dominant. So some people have very high mode of passion, so they have rajoguna, dominant guna. Some people have sato guna as the dominant guna based on their previous spiritual practice or sanskars, and some of the people have tamo guna as the dominant gunas. So depending on those gunas, people have a nature. That is why Krishna is saying naturally prescribed duty. Because Arjuna, one of the arguments Arjuna will make in the Gita is that, I don't want to fight this war, so why don't I relinquish everything and go to the forest, right? And Krishna is telling Arjuna that, that will be contrary to your inner nature. Because if you do that, even if you go to the forest, you will become a king there because your nature is Kshatriya. You're Kshatriya by nature. It's not by birth. It's your inner nature is of a warrior, of a soldier who fights against the right? So that is the inner nature. So if you do that, you might try to do it for a little while, but then eventually you'll again become, your Kshatriya gunas will again become dominant and you'll become a king even in the forest. So you will not be in harmony with your own self. So he's saying know your inner gunas and then choose an occupational duty based on that. And so let's get to the next slide. We'll get into that. So what I have in here is the 4 steps to choose your career, which is know thyself and your inner nature. The next step is about knowing the purpose and prioritizing your work related to that purpose. Step number 3 will be to not pretend to be somebody else, somebody that you're not. And step 4 is to develop and harness your natural tendencies. Now let's see if we have a question, and then we'll kind of go deeper into these.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe Aditya ji. I mean, it's a much needed session on career karma because we want to attach our mind to God. And as you very rightly said, most of our time goes in doing work and how to practically apply this. So, this is very much needed session. So, thank you so much for that. I have a question. So, see, when it comes to choosing a career, so there is a dilemma. So, there, let's say I have a job that is very high paying, but I may not really enjoy it. But whereas there is another kind of job, I really like it, but the pay is less. So, in this kind of situation, which job should I choose? That's
Okay.
my question, Aditya ji.
Thank you for that question. It's a very good and relevant question. And many people face that dilemma. One job is paying less, but it's more, something more interesting, whereas another job pays more. So, what Krishna is telling us, based on the previous slide and what we just talked about, what Lord Krishna is saying is you should choose that path which actually enables you to kind of display your gifts or inner nature. So he would suggest to choose that career which is more aligned with your inner nature, with your interests. So that is why knowing thyself. Now, how do you know that? You will have to kind of evaluate yourself from the point of view of what are your interests, where is your aptitude, because even if you take a job which is more paying but it is not interesting enough, at some point you will lose interest or you will not perform as much or it will be more stressful. Because if you, like they say, if you love what you do then it and get paid for it, then it's not work anymore, right? That's what they say. So in this situation you would want to go with the one that is more aligned with your nature, which means you have to look at those opportunities which are kind of enabling you to show your gifts or harness your gifts that you have been given. And in that, the process of knowing yourself and also having it aligned with a broader purpose in your life. So if you have thought about, now people have goals and objectives about what they are going to do today or 6 months from now, 5 years from now, all of those. In that, I would always say that have a broader purpose to define what your life you want to be, right? And if that purpose should inform your other goals, including the choice of your career, and hopefully that purpose is such that it aligns with your inner nature also, because that purpose should drive other decisions in your life. So align your purpose with that and work towards harnessing your potential. Because if you were to take a job just because it is more paying, that is actually a warning by Lord Krishna. Don't try to be somebody else, because in that you're just looking at the monetary aspect, but that will cause the disharmony in your, eventually you lose interest, or it will be much more stressful. You will have to do for 8 hours or 10 hours a day, you will have to do something you don't like, right? Which is not going to be very very I mean, it will cause stress and other kind of issue. So in your case the choice is pretty clear. I think based on the Gita, you should go with what is more aligned to your inner nature and your interests, and then harness those, to better at that job. So that is my
Oh,
understanding.
thank you, Aditya. You have provided such a clarity from Gita. Yeah, actually, you have mentioned a very good point that we need to look on the broader perspective because money is a very narrowing perspective and we won't be able to discover our inner self. So, it's a very good point that you have taken from Gita and explained us. So, thank you so much,
Thank
Aditya,
you.
ji, for
Yeah.
clarity.
So the again the point that I made earlier, that money is not the most important resource. Time is. So where you're spending your time is very very critical. So thank you. So let's go to the next slide. So what is the essence of Karma Yoga? It is nicely captured in this very very famous shloka: Karmanyavadi karaste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karm phal heturbu mate sangostavi karmani. So, what is Lord Krishna saying here? And I think most people know about this verse, but let us look at it and examine it deeply. He says you have right to perform your prescribed duties. He's using the word right. You're entitled to the performing your prescribed duties, but you're not entitled to the fruits of the actions. So never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, nor be attached to inaction. So what Lord Krishna is saying is do karma, do your duty in such a way that you do your best. However, keep in mind that your effort does not give you entitlement over the fruits of your action. Okay. So, and also, even though you're working to achieve a certain goal, you may or may not get that result, right? So never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities. So, because there are many factors that come together to kind of determine a particular outcome to an event. So, while we think that our effort is the primary reason to achieve whatever we achieve in life, that is only one of the factors. There is a lot of other factors that come into play. So, I think we can ask the other question about this and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, namaste, Dr. Aditya ji. Thanks for the enlightening, lecture on this career karma. It's very much, required in this age. So my question is, my colleague is working less than me, but still he gets promoted. While I am in the same role for last 5 years, I work on weekend, I work late nights, so I work more than him. So I'm in a dilemma that why does this happen to me? So please give the profound knowledge.
Thank you, JG, for that question. I will try to elaborate on that in my next slide. Can we bring that up? In that, I will show you that. Let's go to that one. Yeah. So can we keep moving forward? Yeah. So keep in mind that your karma is basically the input you put in any kind of situation, right? And the output, like the Gita, the shloka that we just read, is the result. Is the result of your effort, but there are other functions or other forces at play. So I have something here called the life function. The life function is how that effort will be evaluated. So think of it as there is an input box where your effort goes in. There is a black box, which is the process. And then there's something that comes out from that effort and the process to give you the output. Now, keep in mind that you do not know what that life function is, right? So at every different point, at different points in life, your life function will evaluate to different results. So your life function basically might sometimes give you more than what your effort was, and sometimes it might give you less than what your effort was. So I have an example. If you see here, this life function, which is a function of x, in this case x being your effort, uh, is evaluated through that process box. And the example, if you see at the bottom, that L of x, I have given as an example in this one, is 2 of x, 2 times x. So if your x is 2, then L of x is 4, right? And if x is if x changes to 5, L of x in this case will be 2 times 5, which is 10. So as you see that in this case, your x is being multiplied, right? You put a little bit of effort, but you're getting a big result at the end, right? In the second example, L of x is 1 divided by x, right? And your x in this second example is 5, which means you're putting more effort than the previous case, right? But your result is 0.5. Why? Because it went through a different function. Instead of being 2 times x, it went through 1 over x. So this is just an example, a math example, to show you that this function that I'm calling the life function is variable. It's not just that the x changes, the function itself changes at different points in life. So some times in life, your x will multiply to give you a 2x. Sometimes your x will divide itself by 1 in this example and give you 0.5, which is half of 1/4 of what your effort was. Your effort was 2, right? So 0.5 is half of 2. So 1/4 of 2. So basically, that is what this life function will operate on. Now, how does this life function come about? This life function is not randomly generated either. This life function is a function of your prior karmas and how they interact with your destiny and the effort you put in. So interaction between your effort and these prior karmas results in this kind of life function. So at every given point in time, a different life function will evaluate based on your prior karmas. Actually, can we go to the next bullet point? So let me summarize this before I move to that one. So focus on the input. So what does it tell you, firstly, in terms of what you're asking? Firstly, you want to focus on your input. What Krishna is telling in the Bhagavad Gita is never consider yourself to be the cause of your activities. While doing karma, as Swamiji says sometimes, right? Karma mein satark, phal mein nischint, right? Or karma mein savdhan and phal mein nischint, which means to be focused and put in your best when you're doing your karma. But when you get the result, be nischint means you are satisfied. Okay, you are content in the will of God as whatever happens as the final outcome. So what it is saying is you have only control over this input part. The process is kind of defined based on your prior karmas. So
Correct.
it changes, it keeps changing, but it is based on your prior karma. Input is all you have in your hand, output is never in your hand, right? So
Yeah.
he's saying is the teaching here is to focus on the input and what is in your domain. Result is not always in your control because you don't know what the life function will evaluate to in any situation. And like I said, life function depends on many factors, including the prarabdha. So what is our focus? Our focus should only be on the effort, not on the result. Now, having said that, let us go to the next slide, which in which I'm kind of opening up the black box of process. So can we go to the
Oh,
next?
yeah. Thanks, Aditya ji. Yeah. Now I remember. Means now I know. Means I don't have to compare myself with others because the life function is different for everybody.
Different
Yeah.
people, yeah. So you're only seeing their effort in this life, but you don't know what they're coming with and what they have done in the past, even in spiritual path, by the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have people at the age of, like Shankaracharya, Adi Shankara, at the age of 8, he's considered also Ansh Avatar also for many people of Shiva, but he's so spiritually evolved at that age. And we have people who are very old and they still have no spiritual inclination. So why is that happening? Even in the material world, right? The world chess champion, grandmasters, people, children who are like Magnus Carlsen, who's the champion right now, he was playing Gary Kasparov at the age of 13. So
Mhm.
how are they able to do that at such a young age? It is not just this lifetime. You don't know what they have accumulated in their previous lifetime, and that is brought to fruition in this life. So they have made rapid progress. And on the spiritual path, that is very, very true. That many of us have worked on this path in the past. So what Lord Krishna promises again in the Gita is whatever merit we have acquired on the spiritual path is never lost. So we are starting, even though physically in the body we may be starting at different points. Spiritually, it does not depend on your body age, it depends on your spiritual age, which is based on your purusharth in previous lifetimes.
Past
So
karmas.
yeah, that is what it gets to. So let's get to the next slide, which also gets into that a little bit. So this is where I've explained that black box I had about process. Can we go to the next one? Yeah. So this is okay. So here I'll spend a minute on this one. So your result at any point. So does that mean that everything is decided? Then what is my effort going to do? So I already showed you in the previous slide that input does matter. It is not that input is insignificant because we do not know what that life function is, right? So whether the input is going to be doubled or whether it's going to be halved, we don't have in control. But we have still control over the input, right? So that input based is important, but it interacts with the various other forces. So where are those forces coming from? One of the forces is the accumulated karmas from our past lifetimes. They are called sanchit karmas. All that karmas that we have accumulated over many lifetimes that have not yet borne fruit, both positive and negative, are the sanchit karmas. Okay, so those karmas have not given us fruit yet. What God does in every lifetime, from that stockpile of those karmas, He will choose a few karmas that He will assign to this particular life, and that becomes your prarabdha karma or destiny for this life. That is what people evaluate when they go to the Jyotishi, the birth chart when they're born. That is kind of getting at this prarabdha karma kind of aspect, which is that from those lifetimes, what few karmas have been chosen for you to experience the results of in this particular lifetime, and that is your second one, which is your prarabdha karma, which is what we also call destiny. This prarabdha karma will create forces in the, I call it bhagya, environmental forces, whatever you want to call, at any given point in time. And there will be some forces that are favorable, some will be not favorable. And these will interact. Can we go click on that button, please? This will interact with your kriyaman karma. So that prayas or slash your effort is what is called kriyaman karma. So three karmas, three types of karmas: sanchit karmas, prarabdha karma, and kriyaman karma. Sanchit karmas are accumulated stockpile of all the karmas. Prarabdha is what is chosen for this particular life. And then you have kriyaman karma, which is the action you are performing right now, right? So
Yes.
at every moment in our life, we are actually uh, creating new karmas as well as reaping the consequences of our karmas done in the past. So here you can see that this, I've tried to show it as a vector sum, but basically what you can think in simple terms is, think of it like a tug of war kind of a situation, or where two forces are opposing each other or aligned with each other. So if obviously your effort aligns with your luck, which means your environmental forces align with your effort, they will push it further. They'll increase your um, uh, possibility or probability of getting the result you want or you're seeking. If your effort is against, or if the luck or the environmental forces are against or unfavorable, then they will oppose your effort,
Mhm.
and that might not give you the result that you're seeking. But keep in mind, these arrows are important. They are showing you that even what you are calling effort or luck is not randomly being generated. This luck is coming from prarabdha, which is coming from sanchit karmas. So which
Hmm.
means you are getting what so like they say, right, as you sow, so shall you reap. So you are getting the consequences of your action at some point in a particular life. Whether a particular action gives you a fruit uh, in this life or the next life or some later life, that is up to God. But whatever you kind of show or throw in the universe, it creates like a ripple effect. It's like throwing a stone in the water. That ripple will be created and it will come back to you in some form. That is the underlying principle in this creation. That is the law of cause and effect. So once we understand that our what is in our hand is only this box, the prayas, because sanchit karmas have already happened, prarabdha has already been determined, so you cannot change that. But what you can change is your kriyaman karma, the what you are doing right now. And that is why it also shows that we should not totally be dependent on destiny, because we do not know how these forces will interact. Maybe our effort is enough to overcome the environmental force at some point. Maybe the effort is uh, sometimes helped by the environmental forces. So we should always focus on doing our effort with our best intention, and then leave the result in the hand of God. So this is that process box. What is inside that process box I showed you, and this will determine, so every the life function will evaluate based on this interaction basically. So hopefully
Thank,
that explains it.
yeah, thank you, Aditya ji. Yeah, now I will, my mind won't be disturbed. Now I know where to focus, and I will give my 100% in the effort, so that whatever is, I'll take it as a, my destiny. Yeah, thanks.
That is all we have in our hand. That is what Lord Krishna is saying. So just do your best. And one of the things in that shloka is, let not the lack of fruits for yourself lead you to inaction. So just focus on your duty and do your best with the best intent, and then leave the result to God. So let's move to the next slide. Thank you. So here are some other helpful tips from the Gita. Lord Krishna says yogastha kuru karmani. So he's saying do action, right, uh, in a way that you know you put in your best effort in a state of yoga. So what is yoga then? Where does yoga come in here? So yoga here does not refer to body postures, which we all know that they are there. We have yoga studios everywhere, people, which is great to get a good health and know the asanas and pranayam and breathing techniques. That's all very good. But specifically in Gita, the yoga is actually talking about skill in action, okay, and evenness of mind. So while you're acting, that is where the best part about being focused, putting more effort. And so I read it somewhere, so I put it here. Excellence pays back mediocrity is like sunk cost. So and this is again covered in chapter 6 of the Gita, where Arjuna talks about controlling the mind, and he basically says it's very very hard to control the mind. And Lord Krishna says, "Asanchaya mahabhavo mano durnigraham chalam abhyasana tu konte vairagena ch grihete." He says that yes, undoubtedly mind is very hard to control, but it can be done. So when Lord Krishna is talking about even controlling the mind, and Arjuna is saying controlling the mind is the hardest in the thing to do. It is like controlling the wind, but it can be done. Abhyasena tu konte. He's saying through practice, it can be done. Through focus practice, it can be done. So if he can do that, then about doing well on your job or on your occupation is relatively easy. It is about practicing. So you may have heard that statement. I don't know if you from Bruce Lee, I think, which says, you not need not fear a person who has practiced 10,000 kicks, 10,000 different types of kicks. You have to fear the person who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. So that is the idea, that about being focused, and doing, developing that skill in action. And another aspect of doing yoga is also evenness of mind. While you're doing the best action possible by honing your skills, you also refer to the idea of yoga in the state of union with Lord, with God. So yoga actually means to join. Okay, so join with what? Yoga here means to join in the union with the Lord. Your consciousness is united with the Lord when you're performing that action. So that is what Krishna is advising us in the Bhagavad Gita, to perform your best of your ability, but keep your mind even, calm, by actually being united with me in spirit. When you act like that, then there is no fear of failure. And this can only happen if you have no sense of doership also. So that is something that we actually have to develop over time, because most of the times we are doing actions for ourselves. We are driven by results for ourselves, and so the actions are done for self interest or self benefit, and that is why we are not in that state of union. So we are affected by the result, and there is fear of failure and all of those things. What Lord Krishna is saying is that engage with your in action with your mind steady and unaffected, by being united in consciousness with me. So that is one of the essential teachings that we will come to in the future slides also. So let's keep going. So this would be a good time actually to ask the next question.
Radhe Radhe, Dr. Aditya Thank you so much for such a beautiful discussion and such an inspiration and great explanation. What better source than the Vedic scriptures actually to derive the knowledge and to look for answers? So we're just so fortunate to be here and have the opportunity to interact with you and ask our questions. So my question relates to achieving work life balance. I have been in the corporate world for more than 20 years now, and the corporate world is very justifiably compared to a rat race because if we want to have a successful career and if we want to progress and climb the corporate ladder, we have to be on the ball all the time, right? We nothing should slip through the cracks. Everything should be done perfectly. You have to compete for your seat every day. That's actually something that I've heard that's been told to me. So that comes with a lot of compromise and a lot of pressure. Inevitably, it creates pressure and stress. So, my question is, how do we deal with stress and still remain able to produce and be able to create success for us?
Sure. So part of what your question was is focusing on the input part, honing your skills definitely will help you doing well. But let us get to what is stress from. What is the cause of stress? Let's get to the next slide. So if you go and look at what stress is from, what causes stress? Stress is basically coming from the feeling of controlling. Whenever we try to control everything, we want everything to happen a certain way, and we don't like if we lose control over those situations. That is what that lack of control is what generates stress. Okay, and why does that feeling of control come from? Well, because you are always feeling that when you are putting the effort, you're entitled to the result, and you feel that the more effort I put in, the more result, better result I should get. But as we looked at in the previous verse, we do not have the full control over the outcome of any action. So the result, the stress results from, I have a formula here if you see on the slide. Stress is nothing but the product of your gap, outcome gap, times the weight you attach to it. Okay. I'm reminded of a very nice quote by Marcus Aurelius, um, which says something like this: if you're distressed by anything external, the pain and the stress is not due to that thing, but your own estimation of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. So, what we are looking at here in this formula, this you see the stress is the gap, outcome gap, times the importance or the weight that you assign to that outcome. So, the outcome gap is straightforward. It is whatever you expect, right, minus what actually happens, right? So if the expectation meets the actual, then there's no stress because you have achieved what you're set for, right? But normally that does not turn out sometimes the way it's supposed to turn out, right? So this is what causes this gap between what you expect to happen and versus what actually happens. But another very important aspect here is the weight that you're assigning. And the weight comes from these three factors that I put in there. They are attachment to outcome, AO. DO is the feeling of doership. And FO is the fruit ownership, meaning AO is how attached are you with that outcome happening. DO is how much entitlement you feel because you feel that I am the doer of that action. And FO is how much, again, you believe that the fruits are for yourself. As you have these dimensions, as you have these three terms, you will find that if you lose the attachment to outcomes, if you're able to reduce that or lose that attachment, or if you can renounce the feeling of doership, or if you can divert the feeling of that fruits are you're entitled to the fruits, and that you have ownership over your fruits, if you can give that feeling away, then you will see that these factors will reduce, which will reduce your weight. And obviously if you can reduce them to zero, then no matter what happens on this box, this will lead to zero, which means if you can reduce the attachment to your outcomes and the feeling of doership and offer your fruits not for the self but to God, then you can actually remove the stress, because then it will be outcome gap times zero. So the weight assigned will become zero. So that is one of the easiest ways to kind of understand that the Gita is telling us is, while you do your best in your effort, realize that you are not the doer, right? The outcome is never fully in your hands, and you're not entitled to the fruits of your action. And if you can
Beautifully
understand,
explained. Beautifully.
thank you. So I'm continuing this. So the problem in this part about outcome gap is feeling of doership tries to control the outcome. So one of the solutions is manage expectation, right? You can either manage your expectations better and realize that outcome is in God's domain, and accept whatever you get with gratitude. And the other side, can we click on the next slide? The importance part is what I was addressing earlier. Um, can we go to the next bullet? Yeah, can you keep going? So in this importance weight part, the importance is attached to the outcome. Now, there's another thing that we need to understand here. Where is the AO, DO, FO coming from? The importance attached to the outcome. That importance usually is coming from contemplation of happiness. Where do we feel we'll get happiness from? So, in the interest of time, I've reduced a few slides, but uh, if you go back into what is the cause of attachment, if you go to the root cause of it, the root cause of that attachment is, or the why do we want fruits for ourselves, is because we think that we will be happy by getting those fruits. So it's the contemplation. We continuously kind of program ourselves saying, if I get this fruit, then I will be happy. So that contemplation keeps on happening. Now, there's another factor there. Why are we contemplating for happiness based on those fruits? Because we have forgotten. So the starting point of all of this is delusion caused by Maya. the veil of ignorance makes you believe that you are the body. Hence, the process starts to satisfy the needs of the body and bodily comforts. Hence, everything uh, is driven by the objective of getting happiness from the perspective of sense objects. And so that is actually the root cause of all of this. But we don't have enough time to go in that. That is probably another workshop. So I'll go, in the interest of time, I'll go to the next topic here. So let's keep going.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. DTG.
Thank you. So let's kind of go to the next slide here. So what is the Gita telling you? That we can attain a state of flow by being in karma yoga. And what I have here is like a depiction in a diagram of what we are talking about. So it's kind of answering somewhat of the question about stress also, but where we need to be. It's a visual depiction of the same idea. So the three dimensions I have are the feeling of doership that I mentioned, right? And what does the feeling of doership do? It basically gives you pride and control. You think you are controlling it because you are the doer, right? And it also gives you sometimes, even when you're doing good, even with sattvic karma, sato karma, when you're doing something good, even when you're doing things like charity, this feeling of doership can taint your charity by making it more rajasic sometimes, because if there is pride that I did something good, that is also binding, then you are not in that state of yoga yet. So you have to be careful about that aspect when we are doing good. So that is the feeling of doership. The other dimension, can we click, is the attachment to outcome. This should happen this way or not happen this way. And that leads to the root cause of, that is the root cause of your stress, right? Anxiety, despair. We typically uh, are living in, most people are living either in the past or the future. We are not living in the present. So either we are worried, either we are basically having holding grudges or problems of the past, what happened with us, we kind of reflecting on those all the time, and that leads us to sometimes sadness or depression and all those kind of things. Or we are worried about the future, what might happen tomorrow. But this moment that is passing, we sometimes don't pay attention that this moment that we have right now is the one we have to focus on. So if we are too attached to our outcomes, keep in mind that those, because we are living either in the past or the future, will cause ourselves anxiety, depression, and all of those kind of things. And the last dimension is fruits ownership for self. And this is basically saying, whatever I get, I'm entitled to my fruits, so I should get them. And this actually causes us to have the feeling of entitlement, and then drives greed also. So we all know that famous shloka dhyayato vishya punsam, which says basically based on the sense objects we are driven, and we get that whatever we get, if we have accomplished what we wanted, or if the desire is fulfilled, it leads to more desire, right? Greed. And if the desire is unfulfilled, it leads us to frustration and anger. So this dimension kind of talks about that. So these three dimensions, what I have is this intersection of these three dimensions. At the point where they're all intersecting, the values on those dimensions, I'm assuming, are zero, which means that intersection is what I call the zone where we are close to God. Okay, so if you're outside, the farther out you are, it is the zone of being in self-centered, kind of. This is basically a sphere, right? So the more outward you are from the center, the more you are in the self-centered zone. Okay, and then as you come closer to the intersection of those axes, you're going from the self-centered to what I call God-centered. Okay, so right in the middle where you see that green area, it says karma yoga, the God zone. And the idea of that is, this is where we want to be on each of these dimensions. We want to be as close as possible to the 0 point, the intersection point, where we have no attachment to outcome, we have given up the feeling of doership, and we have offered the fruits to God instead of the self. So when you're going, the farther you are from the center the intersection, you are in the self-centered zone. And I call the middle one as the moderately self-centered, because we are driven by self-interest, most of us. So as we kind of give up those attachments, and as we give up the fruits and the feeling of doership, we are coming closer and closer to God. And this is why I call this axis of God centeredness. So this is a visual depiction of what I talked about. So so that is where we should strive to be in, and this is what we can also call the stress free zone. Okay, so if you are in there, you are in the stress free zone.
And another term comes to mind, which I'm sure we've all heard. Let's find the center and let's be centered. Let's find our center and work
Hmm.
from there, which makes perfect sense.
And just while we are talking about this, I also feel that the origin is where from everything, where everything started from. So think of that being the source, the God himself, from where
Right.
everything emanates. So we are going back to the source in this situation, in a way to look at it.
Beautifully, beautifully. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Adityaji.
Thank you, Albina ji. Radhe Radhe. So I think this is a good time to ask the next question.
Yes, Radhe Radhe, Aditya ji. Thank you for this excellent session. I'm learning a lot of great things with this thing. I do have a question. I'm basically in the professional world, and being in the IT world, being in the management area, and given the company, clearly, they have a lot of expectations, goals, and things that they want to achieve, and even the projects that I'm working on, there are lots of goals and expectations. So yeah, I think I like your formula about the AO, DO, and FO. So I kind of related to that one. How can basically how can I motivate myself to work if I'm not expecting or attached to basically the outcomes? So that makes it quite difficult. It's more challenging given that the work and all is like a very stressful environment. There's a lot of pressure from the management and all. So I would like to get your information and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinaji. That's again a very important and useful question. And a lot of people have that question: how do I motivate myself, especially when I'm not attached to the outcome? So typically, we work for three reasons. We work for ourselves, family and friends included in that self. We work for others, which is something people we'd like to do charity or help society in whatever way we can contribute. And then the third reason, which I'm going to bring in, is work for the pleasure of God. Okay, so uh, what we should understand here is that the goal is not the same as being attached to the result. Having a goal is not the problem. Being attached to the outcome is the problem. And as we have discussed so far, that you can still put in the best effort without being attached to the outcome by focusing on the goal. Now, how can you do that? The important point here is to change the focus from self to God. If you think of yourself as a servant of the Lord, or being able to serve God through your work, in that change of consciousness, you'll be able to still work to the best of your ability. Because imagine if you're trying to work hard and do well for your own self and your family, how much more uh, work you would put in if you want to serve God. The greatest creations in this world, whether it be art or music or any other fields, have been created by people uh, in a remembrance and service of the Lord Himself, right? Because if your motivation is God, then you will automatically kind of do the best. So think of yourself as being an instrument of the Lord. Think that God has put you in this position, whatever position you are in life, for doing work for the good of others, right? He's using you to do that. Like if you're a doctor or you're a project manager, whatever you're doing, you are contributing to the society through your work. And through by working in the consciousness that God is enabling you to use your abilities and gifts to support and contribute to society. But in the heart of heart, you always keep this in mind, that I'm not the doer. It's Lord's energy that is allowing me to do that. He's made the provisions for me to get whatever education I got. He
Mhm.
made the provision for me to give me good health and well-being. He gave me the provision with getting the right people to work with me in a team, so that I was able to accomplish those goals. So think of that there's God's power behind everything you're doing. So externally, you will not do anything differently. It's internally the way you think about doing it that will change. So when you offer yourself as a instrument, I always say become a glove in the hand of God. Let Him use you. You know, let Him use you. So a person normally plans their day or life. I will do this today, or I'll do this tomorrow. I will do this 6 months from now.
Mhm.
But a person who's kind of developed this faith in God and has kind of surrendered his thoughts to God will say, I don't know what God has planned, let me see what He has planned for me.
Right.
And with that spirit He will work, and you will be helped, you will be guided on how you can go to the next step, because the power of God is working through you in that. We are usually the biggest obstacle in our own spiritual understanding. It is
Mhm.
our ego which wields us and prevents us from realizing that it is the power of God that is flowing through us. And when we actually get out of the way, it flows through us, it naturally does its work, because there you have the grace of God working with you. So with that,
Wow.
so changing the focus from self to God, and
Yeah.
realizing that you are an instrument in the hands of the Lord, be used by that. So
Wow. Great. Thank you very much, Aditya ji. I'm going to definitely use this particular tip as I complete, the projects and everything and achieve the goals. So thank you again. Excellent. Immensely.
thank you.
Radhe.
Let's get to the next one. And I think the next slide I had shown you the same idea that I just talked about. That goal is different from effort, which is different from the result. So you should have a goal, and this goal should be kind of tied to a higher purpose in life, as we discussed in the beginning, right? Whatever you're trying to accomplish, those should align. So make sure you have spent enough time to align your goals with what you have as a greater purpose in your life, and then you work towards it by putting the best effort you can for accomplishing that goal. Result is different from goal, because result is whether the goal was achieved or not. And
Mhm.
whether the goal was achieved or not, we have talked about it already, is not fully always in our hands. So just put our best effort, best foot forward, with the motivation that we are now doing it for the Lord Himself. With that motivation, you will not be tainted by any of your karmas. Arjuna, when he came to fight the battle, he had come with a lot of baggage, right? He had come with all these things that happened with his family. The Kauravas did not treat them well. They were in exile. They took their kingdom. They humiliated his brothers, his wife, all of those. So he had this thing about getting back to them, taking revenge, and setting things right. All of those. What changed after he listened to the Gita was not that he did not fight the war. He still fought the war. He was still shooting arrows at the enemy. So he did have a focus at that time, and he did have a goal. He wanted to win the war, but he was not fighting it for his own self. What changed was his internal consciousness. Now he was doing it for the sake of establishment of dharma on the instructions of the Lord Himself. Lord Krishna said, whether you fight or not, these people are already have written their own destiny. As we saw the prarabdha karma, they have determined their destiny by doing those negative actions. So that will happen anyways. You become a medium, and he says, Nimit matra bhavya savyasachi. Become an instrument and do your karma to the best of your ability. So, with that focus, one should perform your work and leave the result to God, and realize that you are an instrument in the hands of the Lord to be used. So, yeah. So that will be a good segue into I think, the next question. Um,
Radhe Radhe, Aditya ji, what a wonderful, amazing, eye-opening session. But yes, as you said, do karma without attachment, do karma without doership, do karma without expecting the fruit, right? But we all keep doing karma. In this process, I spend most of my day at work, and the rest of the time goes in taking care of the family, right? So how can I make progress on the spiritual path with this limited time? Is my question to you. Thank you, Aditya ji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Chitra ji. So I have little bit addressed what you have asked in the previous slide also, but one of the important points is when you are doing all these duties, what is in the back of your mind? We all normally while we are doing our work, we don't forget about our children. They are always there in the back of our mind. We think of our parents, their health. They're always in the back of our mind, right? While we might forget for a little bit when we are engaged, focused into the work, we still always have them in the back of our mind. What the Gita is suggesting is move that to God. Keep God in the back of your mind. Let that be your default setting. So keep whatever you're doing, like I said, firstly do it with the sentiment, oh Lord, this is my little offering. So what Krishna says, and the next shloka is a very beautiful one, and the next one also. So whatever you do, right? Whatever you eat, whatever you offer to the sacred fire, whatever you bestow as a gift, whatever austerities you perform, whatever action you do them as an offering to me. So again, like I said, fruits for not self, for fruits for God. So whatever karma you're doing, just offer it at the lotus feet of the Lord and say, Lord, you have given me this opportunity. Whatever abilities you have given me, I will use them and offer them back to you. Okay, and please accept my humble offering. Right. So we say in the prayers also, right? Mantrihinam, kriyahinam, bhaktihinam, sureshwari, yat pujitam maya deve purnam tadastu. We say that, right? We are doing whatever we know. We may be wrong, but we're still doing our best, so that and offering it at your lotus feet. With that sentiment, you do your work. To do as whatever little I have been able to accomplish is because of your grace. So I'm giving it back to you. It is not that God needs our help, right, in doing all of these things. Whether he asks Arjuna to fight the war, or whether whatever we offer the Lord from our karmas, God does not need any of that. Why should we do this way? Because it is for our own benefit. When we have the opportunity to do something for the Lord himself, that serves the purpose of purifying us internally, because we are still in the mic realm, and our mind is kind of consisting of all those gunas, right? So all spiritual practice is typically focused towards one goal and one goal alone, which is purification of the mind. And if, because it's almost like, we have the light of God within us, right? Bhagavan Krishna says, Mama Vanshe, Jeev Loka Jeev Bhuta Sanatana. Oh Arjuna, all of you are my eternal tiny fragments. The divine light is within all of us. But like I said, we have become the obstacle. We have covered that light from shining through because we have the mic mind, which is almost like, if you have windows that are not clean, the sunlight will not shine through properly. So you clean the windows, the light will come through. Similarly, our mind is constantly in this state of chatter all the time, thoughts coming, this thought, that thought. If you're silent, you will listen to the voice of God. So basically, all of these, if you can actually develop this over time, and the easiest way I say is, there are methods through that. There is meditation, all kinds of techniques are there. If you are interested to look into how you can develop this as a practice. But one of the easiest ways is to develop love for God. If you can develop love for God, all the others things will follow naturally. Because once you, like I said, does somebody have to teach you to take care of your parents or your children? No, it comes naturally because you love them, right? If you can develop that same sentiment of love, not transactional love, not I give you this, you give me that, not that one. That is not love. That is a business transaction. The love that is unconditional, that is just because you are part of that. And approach Lord in a sentiment of prayer and gratitude and surrender. That kind of love, if you can offer that to the Lord, because as again Bhagavan Krishna says in the 9th chapter, there's nothing that you can offer me that is already mine, but anything offered to me with love, with a sentiment of love, I accept with joy. So underlining point there is sentiment of joy, sentiment of love, right? Because that is what we can offer through our own free choice, right? You cannot love somebody when it is forced. So that is why he's given this free choice to us to choose to love him. And so if we can do it with that sentiment, we can continue to do our work with the sentiment of love and offer it to him, and that will make us walk on the spiritual path. The next shloka is also on the same lines. Can we go to the next slide? And one of my favorite shlokas, if nothing else is left in the Gita, if we can implement just this shloka, everything is good. We can follow the teachings, because this says tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmarana yuddhacha. Right? He's saying always remember me and still do your duty. In this case, he's talking to Arjuna about fighting the war. If your mind and intellect are surrendered to me, you will definitely attain me. See, the cause of our bondage is man. Mane manushyanam karanam bandhan mokshayo. Mind is the cause of bondage, mind is the cause of liberation. So what he's saying is give your mind to me and continue to work.
Mhm.
As Swamiji nicely puts it, right? Hands to work, mind to God. So that is the way we should approach this. So that is how we can continue working while still remembering God at all times, and make it your default state. So
Thank you so much. My goodness, what profound shlokas they are. Definitely, we will try to imbibe and hand to work, mind to God. Thank you so much, Dr. Aditya ji.
thank
Radhe
you.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. So let me wrap. So we have kind of towards the end of the session. So let us go to the next few slides, which is kind of summarizing what we have learned today and what was discussed in the session. So one of the things we want to start with, firstly, is that the most valuable resource we have, we think of ourselves, our wealth, our family, and all of those. Well, they are valuable, but the most valuable resource is time. Every moment time is slipping away, right? Human birth is a rare opportunity for us to evolve to the next level spiritually.
Mhm.
So we should value time, and the maximum time we spend is at work, the waking time. So let us make our work a worship. How can we do that? By working in that state of yoga, in the God centered zone, by doing the work for God, offering it to His lotus feet, the results of all our work, and doing it with the consciousness that everything is done by you, Lord. And so Swamiji actually says this very nicely in one of his talks, that what talents you have is the gift that God has given you, and what you give back through using those gifts to the world is your gift to God. So use it that way, that God's gifts you're using for His own service, for serving God. And then the other thing we talked about is the choice of career. So choose a career aligned with your inner nature, gunas, and your higher purpose in life. What you should always go back to your basics. What is my guiding principle? Is this worth it? If you have that question, go back to your basics and say, what is broadly the purpose of my life? Do I have it identified? If you have not done so, do that. That will help you guide at every step. That will be your guiding principle going forward. I always say spirituality is not some small compartment that you have in your life along with your work, career, and family, and all of those. Make spirituality as defining who are you as a person, and that should inform other aspects of your life. Other decisions should be informed by the fact that who you identify yourself to be. So if we can go away from body consciousness to soul consciousness and know that we are here for a purpose, a higher purpose, to achieve God realization, then all our actions will be driven by that. So that is very important. Focus on the inputs. Outcomes are never completely in our hands. Outcome is a result of many forces at play, like we talked about past sanchit karmas. Do not judge a book by its cover. Do not judge others based on their external actions. You do not know what stockpile of karmas they have had in the past. Do not compare yourself with others, either on spiritual practice or other practices, because you don't know what they have accumulated or what merit they have acquired, what demerits you have or what demerits they have. So the most important point to remember here is focus on thyself, focus on self improvement. As the Dalai Lama says, it is more important to know one shortcoming in yourself than knowing 1,000 in somebody else. So focus on yourself, on self improvement. Okay, let's get to the next slide, which is probably the last one. So make the journey as important as destination. We hear the term about focusing on the process. Well, if you like what you do and you get paid for it, that's the best situation to be in. So you enjoy the process of doing something more than the result. And that is one way that you kind of can align if you align your inner nature with it and you can offer it for God, then you will be naturally able to excel in that, because you are already enjoying the process more than the result. So the journey is its own reward. In certain situations, when you're faced with dilemma, a nice way to kind of ask yourself this question: what would Arjuna, Krishna, or somebody whom you consider wise would do in that situation? That might be a nice question to pose to yourself, and sometimes you might be guided. And this could be not just the Lord himself. You could even take examples from people you know in your friend circle, your family, your parents, who knows. So somebody could whom you consider as wise, as spiritually more elevated, what kind of action would they take in that situation? That would be probably a guiding principle. Use your skills and talents to help others with the sentiment that you're serving God. I've already said you work for three reasons: self, others, God. Make God as the goal of your work and do work in that spirit of yajna, which is offering everything. When we do swaha in a yajna, when we do that fire of offering, we never claim it back, right? We never put our hand into the fire and take it back, because once it's gone, it's gone. So every karma should be done like that when you are claiming for the fruits, you are actually putting your hand in the fire. Don't do that. What he's saying is offer it just like that and let it go. Okay. So doing work in such consciousness purifies us internally and helps us progress on the path to God realization. So I think that was it. Let us see. Yeah, thank you. And if there are any other thoughts, questions, comments, welcome to share those. Thank you all for joining on this session and asking very pertinent questions. Hopefully, they'll be helpful to people who will watch this session later on. So, thank you for being here. And if you have any thoughts, comments, parting comments, let me know.
Thank you, Dr. Aditya ji. It's a profound knowledge. Yeah, it's very helpful in our day-to-day life. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. And thank you for highlighting the key takeaways. We will remember them for sure. So many lessons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Srinathji, Chitraji,
Thank you, Radhe
Venaji,
Radhe.
Vidyaji, and Jayeshji. Thank you. It was a great
You,
session.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you.
Radhe Radhe.
तू ही तो है मेरा नंद नंदन। मैं भी तो हूँ तेरा नंद नंदन। तू ही तो है मेरा नंद नंदन। मैं भी तो हूँ तेरा नंद नंदन। तू ही मेरा स्वामी नंद नंदन। तू ही मेरा सखा नंद नंदन। तू ही मेरा सुत नंद नंदन। तू ही मेरा पिए नंद नंदन। तू ही मेरा नंदन। मैं भी तो हूँ तेरा नंद नंदन। These lines demonstrate Ananya Bhakti of a devotee for his Lord. Let us take inspiration from the bird Chatak. Chatak waits all the year long for the water to be showered by the Swati Nakshatra cloud. It doesn't consume water from any other cloud. Once, the Chatak was waiting for its beloved Swati cloud to pour down rain. That is when a hunter took an aim at it. The Chatak flew away and took shelter on the top of a tree. However, the Chatak soon realized that the water which was used to irrigate this tree was not from the Swati cloud. So it left the tree and flew away. On its flight, it got shot by the hunter's arrow. Yet it kept flying towards an ocean. Even in the last few moments of its life, it closed its beak and refused to drink water from the ocean because it was not from the Swati cloud. That is Ananya Bhakti. Focus facilitates perfection. That is the nature of our human mind. But an overdose of focus can cause monotony and loss of quality performance. Fascinatingly, devotion helps the mind to focus better and improves overall performance. Ananya Bhakti or exclusive devotion implies absolute faith in God, irrespective of consequence. It means the acceptance of outcome with contentedness and focused spiritual constancy. Ananya Bhakti thus relieves people from worldly expectations and apprehensions. Let us contemplate on it and try and cultivate Ananya Bhakti for the Supreme Lord. Radhe Radhe.